Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. Please visit our website, cscatlanta.org, for a complete list of live and recorded events. We invite you to sign up for our newsletter to stay connected to all future programs.
My name's Lauren. I'm the program director here at Cancer Support Community Atlanta. I'm happy to have both of our chefs here today. What a fun treat. This is not a one chef job, more like a 5-chef job, but I have 2, so I use 2. They're going to make an awesome Thanksgiving spread for us. So if you're not having kind of a regular Thanksgiving next week, you've got it right now with us. All friends here, so I'm glad to have each of you today. Thank you, Kip and Mike, and the floor is yours. I know y'all have a lot of stuff to run through, so I'm scooting out of the way. But thank you guys, and thank you for joining us, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, everybody, welcome. I'm so glad to see you here. I see some faces who were with us last year and lots of new faces as well, so welcome to everybody. We do the Thanksgiving meal a little bit differently because we're offering a lot more dishes as you look in the recipe packet, so we're gonna demo 3 of them. We have a lot of fun bouncing ideas off of each other and planning this menu. We try to pick things that are seasonal and remind us of Thanksgiving, but maybe have a twist, maybe have a different flavor profile, maybe have something that you haven't seen before. So we are going to start with twice cooked sweet potatoes. Then Mike is going to move on to cranberry relish and a collard green salad. And then we're just going to talk through the other recipes. We've got turkey, we've got mushroom Wellington, and we've got some chocolate rosemary olive oil cakes. So we'll talk through tips and tricks for all of those recipes as we get to them. But because we need to get these sweet potatoes in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and start with them. So twice cooked sweet potatoes. I very specifically didn't call them twice baked sweet potatoes because over the years I've developed a preference in cooking sweet potatoes for steaming them rather than roasting them whole. I find when you steam them, they just are more tender, they're a little less fibrous and stringy, and you know, part of what's happening inside the jacket of that sweet potato is that it's steaming inside the skin anyway. Now, if I was making roast sweet potatoes that were chopped up, I still want to get them browned, that's great. But for this preparation, we really want the inside of it to be very tender. So I've got our 4 sweet potatoes right here. They've already been steamed. To steam them, I just stuck them in the steamer basket with a couple inches of water, brought that up to a boil, and then turned it down to a simmer. And this size sweet potato took about 30 minutes. Something that is fatter is what's going to take longer. That's going to make more of a difference, actually, is not so much the overall, but the width of it. So I'd start checking them at 30 minutes or so. They might take as much as 35 or 40, depending on what's going on. All right, let's get it so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, so we're going to slice these long ways. Sweet potatoes are, I find, a little bit more tender skinned than white russet potatoes that you would often use for a regular twice baked potato. So you want to handle them gently. And then when you're scooping out the flesh of these already cooked, it should be nice and tender. You want to leave a little bit of a wall because that's just going to help your sweet potato skin not to tear as much. Now, if it does tear, don't worry, keep going. All is not lost. Because when you go back to refill it, this filling kind of acts like glue, and you can just perform minor surgery on your potatoes, and no one will be the wiser. Somebody might be able to tell that that happened on 1 or 2 of the ones I made last night. Thanks, Chef.
Slide that bowl over here. I can scoop it in there for us, yeah?
Came with spoons in your pocket. When I was thinking about the flavors for these, I have been on a bit. I guess I get on ingredient jags. Does that happen to you guys, where you just get on ingredient, you're excited about it, and use it all the time? So last month I made a roasted cabbage recipe with miso, and so I guess I've had miso on the brain, or I knew we had miso in the fridge here. And so these sweet potatoes are seasoned with butter and miso, in part just because I love that combination of the salty savoriness from the miso and the creaminess from the butter. Are we going to be able to get all these in this pan?
Uh-huh.
Oh, look that long one. It just took a tear. That's okay. We're going to put it all back together.
Mother Nature's will.
There are different kinds of miso. So the one I'm using here today is mellow white miso. You could use any kind of miso that you find or like. The mellow white has the mildest flavor. So miso is a fermented soybean paste. It's usually made with soybeans. Sometimes it does have other ingredients in it like barley. So if you're gluten sensitive, you want to double check that. But the traditional version of it, it's a Japanese ingredient, fermented soybean paste, and it has some microbiotics or prebiotics in it. Probiotics is the word I'm looking for. Thank you. And a lot of salty, savory flavor. So we're just gonna dump this in here, and our butter. And then I'm putting lime juice in here. I went ahead and zested these limes because we're going to use that for the topping. But I'll talk a little bit about, if you've seen a demo with Mike or I ever, you've probably seen us singing the praises of the microplane, which is my favorite tool for zesting citrus. And generally, if I'm using citrus in anything, I'm probably going to zest it because there's so much good volatile oils in the citrus skin and in the zest that just add more flavor. So if you're using lime juice in something, then zesting it will just give you more of that flavor. So as you saw, I sort of went around in a spiral so I could kind of maximize what I was getting out of it. I usually like to hold the microplane up so the zest sort of piles up on top. It's a little easier than aiming it into this tiny little bowl. All right. I also like to give my limes a roll and get more juice out of them that way. And I've done this a couple of different ways. I have done it where I've just mixed up the butter and the miso together before adding it. Because my butter here was extra soft, I just threw it all in there because it's all going to mix together. So the filling of the sweet potatoes is just the butter, miso, and lime juice. And I think what I love about it is that you're really touching on a lot of flavors right there. You've got the umami flavor from the, thank you, from the miso. You've got the sweetness from the sweet potato. You've got that real creamy, buttery flavor from the butter. You've got some nice acid. It's really just all around good. I'm going to stop there before I do the last one and give it a taste before we... Now, you could take a hand mixer to this or put it in a stand mixer if you wanted to. You just want to be careful when you take a mixer to potatoes, and sweet potatoes especially, that they can get kind of gummy if they get overmixed. So I, for this, have generally just done it by hand. And you're really just looking for no big chunks of potato, no big chunks of miso. And that looks like we're
Do you all cook sweet potatoes for Thanksgiving?
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make casseroles and things like that? I was sitting here watching her thinking this could be a casserole,
could
right?
be a casserole.
You could bake
It'd
it
be-
without that maybe, and just
You
put the topping over
absolutely
the
could.
top. And that'd
And
be kind of fun.
we debated
wouldn't
that.
look-
I feel
it
like in
wouldn't
the
look
office
as-
when we were,
Wouldn't look as nice.
the
but
presentation is
Yeah.
not as
fancy.
right.
Yeah.
Roast potatoes. How do you feel about the microwave?
That is an excellent direction as well, and I considered doing it last night when I had 20 sweet potatoes to deal with.
I'm all for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say go for it.
Especially on a holiday, right? You got to think about your kitchen. I don't know if you do all the cooking, but you have stuff everywhere, right? So the microwave is one thing you might not be using.
Yeah, although I found, because I was steaming them, I had cakes in the oven and sweet potatoes on the stovetop. I was doing all right. So we're just spooning this all back in. I'm going to perform a little potato surgery on this one right here. And then after we get these filled, we're going to make a little crunchy topping. Again, you absolutely could do this in a full casserole format if you liked.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, Chef. For our topping, I thought about a lot of different directions. I really, with this combination, was thinking first about the flavor of sesame seeds, and I really wanted a crunchy topping. And so we're using a lot of sesame seeds here. I've got 3 tablespoons of sesame seeds and 1/3 cup of panko breadcrumbs. And the panko breadcrumbs are really just giving us a lot more crunch, right? I wanted that really fun, crunchy, textural topping. The zest from the limes. And then toasted sesame oil is a really awesome flavoring ingredient. You can buy regular sesame oil, but toasted sesame oil just has a ton of flavor to it. A little goes a long way when it comes to toasted sesame
Be careful.
oil.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to fully crisp up this breadcrumb topping with only toasted sesame oil, so we're using a little bit of olive oil as well. You could use any other neutral oil that you like. A little pinch of salt. And we're just going to give it a stir until everything is evenly distributed. All right, so you could get your potatoes to this point if you're working ahead for a holiday or an event, and refrigerate them for 2 or 3 days like this, and then day of topping and crunch. That's what I did for these over here. I steamed them last night, mixed them and restuffed them last night, and then I added the topping to them this morning. When it comes to how to bake them, if you have made them like this filling is still pretty warm. I'm gonna stick them in. This oven is a little finicky, so we've tried a couple different experiments with this oven. So some of it comes down to knowing your oven and what you're trying to do. If they're coming out of a refrigerator, and then you're gonna put the topping on, I would go 400 degrees and give it 30-45 minutes. You might still need to give it a little blast with the broiler at the end if you want it to be really browned on top. We've turned it up a little bit higher here today because we're trying to move fast and we don't necessarily want to take the 30 or 45 minutes. Plus, these are still pretty warm. So we're going to experiment. We put them in earlier. We finished with the broiler and they got dark very, very fast. So we're trying an experiment. We'll see how it turns out. The oven's turned up to 550, but it's not on broil. So we'll see. We'll check on them in about 5 minutes and see what they look like. This is a generous amount of topping for this just because I really wanted the crunch impact here. You could, of course, adjust it however you like.
I recommend the crunch.
Crunch is good.
It's really nice.
The crunch is good. And I left the top off of them over there so that we could try to maintain that crunch and not steam it out.
So yeah, to that point, you want to be careful if you do them ahead of time and you roast them, you get something crunchy, and then you put foil over it. It's going to get soggy again, right?
So that's that. That is our sweet potatoes. I'm going to turn it over to Chef, who's going to
Hi.
talk about collard greens.
If somebody's gluten-free, you just leave off the topping?
You actually, this morning when I was buying these at the grocery store, I first found gluten-free panko breadcrumbs.
Voila.
So you could go in that direction. Panko, by the way, is just it's also a Japanese breadcrumb. It's a lighter, crispier, less sort of granular. You know, regular breadcrumbs, seasoned breadcrumbs can kind of feel like sand, and these are just much more granular, flaky, if you will. So I like them for that reason.
Awesome. Okay. Collard green salad. We're gonna make collard green salad. We're gonna make cranberry relish. Then I'm gonna talk about some Wellington, some turkey, and some cake. If you stick around here long enough, I'm gonna force you to eat enough green salads, rough stuff, kale. We've been through it all, right? I don't think we've explored collard greens. Raw collard greens. Can you imagine? In your life. That's amazing. So collard greens are getting close to collard green season, right? These are nice. They come in bunches like this. They come in bags too. So let's talk about the bag situation first. I don't necessarily like the pre-cut collard greens because somebody's going to ask, what about the pre-cut? The problem with the pre-cut is you get a lot of these, right, stems. They're not great for a raw salad unless you want to sit there and really cut them up, fine, which there's nothing wrong with that either, right? We can do that if we don't want to waste the stems. I'm okay with wasting some stems. But what we're gonna do is just take that stem and just do that, right? That's what we're left with. So that can go to compost, rabbits, whatever you have, or maybe trash. Or if you want to chop it up, right? So I went ahead and did some of this ahead of time. And what we're going to do, we're going to make a dressing. We've made dressings with vinaigrettes so many times. But we're going to make one today, balsamic for this. This is a salad we make a lot at work. When I first heard about collard green salad, I thought it was kind of weird.
Same.
You know,
I read a recipe and I was like, oh, this recipe looks really nice. It
Yeah.
had apples, it had pecan or walnuts, I think. And I was reading the recipe and I was like, where do you cook them?
right? Raw collard green? You gotta be kidding me, right? And I'm a Yankee by trade. I grew up north, so I didn't even cook collard greens. But here we are, we're eating them raw, and I have to tell you, it's really good. They're not that tough. They're really not. And what I like about them is the salad. So it's Thanksgiving Day. You're running around the house. You got so many things to do. The salad is probably the last thing that you usually make, right? If you're going to dress it, whatever it is, Caesar salad or regular. This salad actually can be made ahead of time because it's one of those greens that can handle some dressing and chill out and just not get soggy, right? So it's really good. It's easy to make ahead of time. So what I do with my greens, I roll them up like that, right? Yeah, thank you. And then I cut them in half like that, and I cut them like this, and then I just rough chop them, right? It's not a beauty contest. We don't have to care about how they all look. If we want to, we can even tear them by hand, right? Remember, I'm lazy in the kitchen, right? One less thing you have to dirty up is your cutting board or knife. If you want to, you can tear them. That's fine. So other greens, I think I included maybe like Napa cabbage could be fine here. Kale is certainly.
Kale for sure.
Kale for sure.
Swiss chard.
Swiss chard. I've actually made this with mustard greens before. The only thing with mustard greens is they're really gritty, so you really have to clean them. So we don't want to eat grit. That's pretty easy, right? Collards, chop, done. Okay. So next we're gonna take our onion, right? Remember, take that off, right? Root. We've been through this onion program a lot. Peel that onion back. Really hard to work with rubber gloves. If you're home, you don't need them. Okay. So we have red onion. And the other thing, this salad, endless combinations. What do you want to put in? It doesn't matter. You know, I found some golden raisins here today. I found some cranberries here today. Those are cool. We're gonna use those up. You know, for our pantry here a little bit. Onion, I'm just gonna slice it thin. Right? Really thin. How do we not cry when we slice onions? You guys never asked that question.
What's the answer? Do you guys know? What's the best tip? Wear goggles. I actually have something called onion goggles that are like sunglasses with little puffy foam around them that my mom gave me, and my kids like them. But if you don't want to have goggle contraption, any other? What's that? Blow your nose. Okay. I will tell you the best tip that I have found that makes the biggest difference is have a sharp knife. Which is really generally a good practice all the time, is have a sharp knife. Because what's happening when you are cutting is you're breaking the cell walls that have the sulfur compounds that are being released. And if you're slicing through them with a sharp knife, you're not breaking as many of those cell walls versus if you were just like smashing through them with a dull knife, you're just smushing more of the cell wall and causing more of the sulfur compounds to come out.
Some of the other suggestions, a cold onion, you know, breathe through your mouth, not your nose. I do that one. If I don't have a sharp knife. Sharp knife helps. Okay, so mustard, balsamic, some honey. Of course, you guys know I measure everything. Right? And then oil. Oh, we're gonna use grapeseed oil. I think I made a note of that. Yeah, I found some here too. I didn't want to use it last time, but this is a special occasion. I like grapeseed oil. Just whisking it in. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna throw those onions in here, massage them, take some of the sting out of them. Right? I'm not a huge fan of raw onions, believe it or not. But I can tolerate onions that have had some vinegar on. Any questions up to this point on this salad? Yeah, I've made it a day ahead and it still worked out great. Trying to think of something you might not, you know, if you're putting cheese in it or something, I didn't have enough. Be careful. The one thing I've learned with the cheese, such as feta or goat, you'll crumble it up and then it'll start to like, I don't want to say melt, but it'll get all dispensed, and then your salad looks kind of weird.
The other thing to be mindful of is your nuts. They'll get a little soft in the refrigerator overnight. So if you want the nut, which is not bad, you know, if you've made it ahead of time with nuts, it's not all is lost. But if you want your nuts to still have that toasty crunch quality to them, they do get a little softer if they've been in the refrigerator with
salt. Thank you.
You're welcome. With moisture.
Any other recommendations in addition to seed oil?
Yeah, vegetable oil.
Any particular?
Yeah, veggie oil is great. You want, again, you know, we've talked about it so many times, a neutral oil, anything neutral. Don't bust out your best olive oil that you have and you spend a lot of money on it. Salad dressing is not something you want to use expensive olive oil on, in my opinion.
It kind of depends on what you're going for. In general, with oil, you can, from a nutrition standpoint, generally olive oil has the best fatty acid profile, so that's great for a lot of applications. It does have a pretty distinctive flavor, and if you're wanting a more neutral flavor, grapeseed oil, canola oil, those are also going to have a pretty good polyunsaturated fat profile. From a nutrition standpoint, something like corn oil, soybean oil is a little less preferable, but all of those are going to be neutral oils. What's nice is, you know, just like all the other principles of nutrition, we really like variety as much as anything. And So varying the oils that you use, varying the vinegars that you use, varying the colors of onions that you use, all of that variation is going to give you different plant beneficial qualities to them, right? They've got different polyphenols, they've got different, the things that give them the colors are also the things that tend to fight inflammation. And so the more variety, the more better.
Okay.
What is it in onions that's good for you? Well, there's some anthocyanins, which is a type of polyphenol. It's great for inflammation that's in red onions in particular, but all onions have some measure of vitamin C. And now your quiz, I feel like I remember, I'm like thinking back to graduate school, and I remember my professor telling me that there was something that we were discussing, and I can't remember if I was in a micronutrients, it would have been a micronutrients class about onions, but the particular nutrient is escaping me at the moment. That's for you, chef.
It's, to me, it's how neutral it is, right? Because when I make a salad dressing, I want to taste the flavor of the vinegars, right? So I may even want to use a nicer vinegar that I have, but I don't want to mask it with some. Here's the thing with olive oil, right? You get a really nice olive oil, it has such strong forward grassy notes, right? It's a beautiful thing to finish with, right? If you're making something and you want to finish with some olive oil, this is all on my opinion, right? But I don't want that to take over my vinegar taste, right? Or the things that are in my salad, right? The pecans, the raisins. Olive oil really plays a big role in that because it's so strong, right? It's overpowering. So that's why I choose the grapeseed oil. Plus, if I make a lot of it, one thing it won't do is it won't congeal in my refrigerator. So it's easy to refrigerate. I have a lot of greens here, so I'm doing a lot of trying to work.
I'm just going to point out while he's there that is a hot pan that just came out of a hot oven.
One thing real quick, I'm sorry. I am massaging these, and that's part of in the recipe. That's what we talk about massaging. I'm just breaking those greens down, right, like that. Just giving them a massage, holiday massage, right? It works really well. It breaks all those fibers down. And that's the vinegar and the oil and the dressing. So,
yeah, if you think about it, going and eating this, right? It's a lot to chew. It's pretty fibrous, right? And so when you're making salads with the darker green leafy vegetables, chard, kale, collard greens, they all really benefit from a massage.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why they're going to hold up in the fridge, right? If you were to, I mean, you don't even have to massage other lettuces. If you just put vinegar, if you put acidic ingredients on a regular lettuce and let it hang out for a day, it's going to be soup by tomorrow.
Or by the evening. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that those salads aren't good. They just serve a different purpose on a different kind of menu.
That's what they're doing right now. Yeah, they're shrinking. That's why I'm gradually putting them in because I had a big bowl of heaping stuff, so I broke them down. It's hard to do a demo for a lot of people, so I'm gradually massaging them and trying to get them to shrink up here in the bowl.
They're not going to break down as
Not like
much.
That. No.
Yeah.
They are not like that.
In fact, when I was at the grocery store this morning buying these collard greens and was getting a second opinion on FaceTime with Chef about how many to buy, I forgot that he was making salad. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm buying collard greens for 40 people that are going to be cooked down. So I bought everything they had.
Yeah.
Okay, so sweet potatoes real quick. These spent about 7 minutes in a 550-degree oven, and at this point they've got some browning on top, which is what we like. I'm going to turn this oven down to warm because I don't have a chafing dish for them, so that these can stay warm. But that if you were making them right away, and the first time I tested them, I just threw them under the broiler. That works fine. If you're making them in advance, you're not going to want to broil them because you're going to get your tops browned and your inside's going to be cold. So go give them more time in just a regular oven if you're making it ahead.
So we're just adding some apples. These are pink ladies, fresh apples. I'm just gonna chop them up. Again, I'm not paying too much attention to how my dice cuts look. You can if you want. But I'm making them large enough that they don't get lost in the salad, right? So we want to make them a little bit larger on the left. I forgot that we're in reverse, right? Yep. Okay. So anyway, we want them. I want them like that for me. I'm just going to go ahead and work through some of those. If you have an apple core, that's great. If not, just chop them up like I did. Throw them in here. We're going to throw everything in a bowl to present to you guys. So I'm just working out of this pan right now. I'm going to mix everything together with pecans and raisins and cranberries. Again, you can add cheese. You can add different types of. You guys know how to make salad dressing. If there's a different salad dressing you like that you'd rather use on this, you can do that. What else? Any questions?
Good question.
I think I added that in there, right? What's that recipe calling for?
In this one, you have 1/4 cup of vinegar to 1/2 cup, so you're doing a 2-to-1 ratio of vinegar to oil.
Yeah, sometimes I change that, right? I mix it up. If you look at all the recipes that I've turned in here over the years, sometimes I want a little more forward vinegar.
And that is a ratio that is more vinegary. It's more acidic than a lot of salad dressings.
I want
and
that here.
You want that with these dark leafy greens. You need that to help relax your greens so that you don't feel like you're just chewing on roughage.
And I want that oil front. I want more of that vinegar to cut through those greens.
Whereas if you were making a vinaigrette with a more delicate lettuce, then I would go something like arugula, something like a bib lettuce, then you would go with a higher ratio of oil to acid. The other thing, if you're not quite sure where you want it to be, start with less acid and add more, but you can always adjust, taste and adjust, taste and adjust, taste and adjust.
These are going straight in there like that. Any dried fruit works great. Dried cherries are amazing. I love them. Chopped. Any allergies here today? No allergies. First time, right? Yeah, there we go. So, I'll throw that together. So, what's next?
Here, punish pass me. I can put it in the bowl.
Greens down there. Okay. All right. Next, any follow-up questions to the salad? No.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, because it's the green salad, and as you collard greens, you put kale.
Mhm.
If you're putting kale, collard greens, and mustard greens, is that just too much green? It's too overwhelming to chew for most people?
You mean kale, collard greens, and mustard greens in the same salad?
Because I thought I had heard that you put kale and collard greens.
Oh, I was saying you could mix it up. Either kale, collard.
As an alternative.
Yeah.
Although there's no rule that
There's
says
no
you couldn't
rule.
mix kale and collard greens in the same salad. The principles are gonna apply to massaging it, breaking it down, and if you've got 3 different varieties of greens, it's more about the ratio of the toppings to the greens. Does that make sense? Like you could, I don't think that it necessarily makes a difference or matters if you have one variety of greens or three variety of greens. What's going to be too much to chew is if you don't massage the greens.
And we don't have rules. We barely measure. Okay. Cranberry relish.
All right. Once upon a time, Chef Mike was a new chef in healthcare. And he was making cranberry sauce for the patient menu for Thanksgiving. And I walk by and I'm like checking out what he's doing. And I mentioned that I grew up with cranberry relish. And that was the type of cranberry sauce that my grandmother made. And that's what I was used to. That's what I grew up with. And I kind of described it. I didn't know the recipe that well at the time. But essentially, it's just the cranberries are pureed in a food processor with orange and pecans. And this man looked at me like I was out of my mind.
I truly did. I've never heard of such.
He was like, "What are you talking about? You don't cook the
culinary
cranberries."
anarchy. What is going on?
And I said, "It's what my granny did. I don't know, man. It's just what I know." And I think I might have even called my mom and had her send me the recipe. And I can't remember the details exactly. We should probably make up a story for how it went. Of if I don't think I made it. I think I just showed you the recipe.
Yeah, I made it.
And I don't think you served it for patients that year, but you definitely made it, tried it,
We did it
and
for our lunches.
he has never turned back. And so it's a classic tale of I was right and he was wrong. I told you so. And
Yeah,
I will
so
never
anyway,
let him live.
we have.
He's so humble though.
We have. It's not that complicated. It's one 12-ounce bag of frozen cranberries, right? Frozen fresh. They sell them in the right fresh cranberries. Some apples, cored and chopped. You don't even need. So we want to make this thing in a food processor. I am going to chop these up a little bit because sometimes the food processor, what's going to happen is I'm going to throw these apples in there, and one apple is just going to spin around and around and around and not chop up. So I do try to chop things a little bit before I throw them in the food processor. What else? We have zest of orange, zest and juice of orange, which I have here. We're going to double the recipe. This one I did measure out ahead of time because this is one of those things you really. Okay, you don't have to follow the recipe. You can adjust the sugar a little bit.
I think the way the recipe is written is to start with half a cup. My grandmother made it with a full cup for 12 ounces because my grandmother didn't skimp on sugar on anything in her life. My palate is a little bit more refined than it was when I was a child, and I've come to appreciate a little bit more balance between acid and sweetness. So I say start with half a cup. Taste it. If it's not as sweet as you want it, know that Granny will give you the blessing to go all the way up to a full cup of sugar.
Yeah, mess it up. And you just put the
Sure.
sugar right in there.
Good question. Could you use honey, agave syrup, maple syrup, any other sweetener that you like? Absolutely. The orange pulp in there as well. Nice. Yeah.
Right. Food process. Okay. Yeah. And sometimes you gotta do a little adjustment. Food processors are weird. They don't always chop the way you want them to.
If you guys want to see something fun, go watch last year's Thanksgiving video where Chef was fighting with the blender when he made this.
It was. You for reminding us. That was a very awkward time. What's
Now you've got so much more awkward times in front of this beautiful audience. We all do. My favorite is putting on gloves after you've just washed your hands in front of a group of people where you're just like,
right.
trying to make conversation while you awkwardly try to get your hand in a wet hand in a glove.
That's right.
Just like right now, I'm awkwardly making conversation while
He's struggling with this piece of equipment. Yeah.
Chefs, they're just like us.
Published this morning how to cheat on cranberry relish,
Okay.
and she used a can of ocean spray full of cranberries.
Uh-huh.
But I swear it's the apples, the oranges, some sugars,
You mean she heated it? Is that what you said? Okay. I'm gonna let him finish this so that you can hear on the video.
Yeah, I'm just getting a little shake. I need a little work.
So traditional cranberry sauce is made by cooking it, right? And it has all sorts of different things, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, chili, right? There's as many different ways to make it as there are home cooks, right? So, yeah, I mean, we go all the way from the can of Jell-O stuff, which if that's what you're into, that's what you like, you know, I'm not hating on you. This is just what I happen to be grew up with, and I have no idea where my grandmother got the recipe. She probably clipped it out of a newspaper, or somebody at her church made it and shared the recipe with her. But my entire life, this is the cranberry relish that we had. We didn't have any other cranberry condiment at Thanksgiving.
Has anyone else ever made this?
What's that? She didn't cook it.
Yeah, okay.
Why would Ina cook it? Because Ina's used to cranberry sauce? I don't know why she cooked it. I don't know. Have to, yeah, exactly. Is there an episode where she explains why?
video of it, but I was
There's a lot of spices and I think it helps.
Okay, so it has more spices in it. Perhaps.
Just a day or two in advance.
So my grandmother would make this and freeze it. And she always, actually, year round, had it in her freezer. Right. I mean, we didn't eat it frozen, but it freezes and thaws beautifully.
How many people does this feed?
It depends
Depends on how much you serve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna see how much we had. It's quite a lot. I mean, it's really. I don't think strong is the word. It's very. Potent.
Yeah, I mean, 12 ounces of cranberries is the bulk of what it is, so you can sort of, you know, it's got a little bit more pecans in bulk, but if you look at the bag of 12 ounces of cranberries, that's about the volume that you're going to end up with once you add pecans and add other stuff in there. So you're probably going to still end up with close to, of the recipe that's written there, you're probably going to end up with about 2 cups. So if you're somebody who wants, you know, a heaping serving. Oh, love that. Yes. I love, yeah, that's a great idea.
The recipe does say frozen. Yeah, you would thought it out. But you can this time of year the cranberries are sitting in the refrigerator. Almost there.
So there was a question about frozen cranberries out of season. I guess I haven't looked for them. Yeah, I can't I remember specifically seeing them.
the thing to do is to buy them at Thanksgiving.
I think that's what my grandmother did, was buy them at Frank's Thanksgiving and just make, and I can even see her like Tupperware, the little square Tupperware containers just stacked up in her freezer. What's the word, chef? All right, beautiful.
I would eat it.
All right, so we've got a few more recipes that we are not going to demo, but we're going to just talk through a little bit to give you guys some insight on them. We'll talk about the olive oil cake and then we'll switch to the mushroom Wellington. So if you were with us last year, we made olive oil cake and we served cranberry relish as the condiment topping on the olive oil cake. So I do not claim to have created this olive oil cake recipe. I've made several different varieties of olive oil cake over the years. And when I found this one, I've never switched. So this is a recipe that was published all over the internet, but it was created by an Italian restaurant in New York City called Maialino that doesn't even exist anymore. The thing that I like about this recipe in particular is that it has a really high amount of olive oil. It has a fair amount of milk in it, so it's got a lot of liquid to it, so it's got a very dense crumb. It is so moist. I love that you can make it days ahead and it does not dry out. It's going to stay really moist. I've never tried to freeze it, but I imagine it would probably freeze quite well. It doesn't last very long in my house. The basic Maialino recipe is this without the rosemary and the chocolate, but it still has the orange zest, orange juice. Grand Marnier is in there. I say optional because I think I made it once with Grand Marnier because I happened to have it. And ever since then, I have only just doubled the amount of orange juice in it. So you want to end up with the same amount of liquid. And that could be just orange juice, or it could be orange juice and Grand Marnier. That's your choice. But it's really such an easy cake because it's add all your dry ingredients, add all your liquid ingredients. There's no creaming butter and sugar. You quickly mix them together, put it in the cake pan. It is awesome. So this time we decided to switch it up a little bit and add rosemary and chocolate, which is a way that I've experimented it with in the past. The chocolate can be a little bit tricky. The first time I ever tried to put chocolate in this cake, I made it with chocolate chips and they sank to the bottom because it's a very thin batter. So this time I took my chocolate bar and I grated it on a box grater so that my chocolate shavings were very light and fluffy. And I put half of the batter in the pan, put half of the chocolate in there, and gave it a little swirl with a knife to kind of get it in there. And then the rest of my cake batter and the rest of the chocolate gave it a swirl again. I made several of these. You can see one of them, the one I didn't put whipped cream on. Let's see if you can see it. See on the edge there, the chocolate ended up hanging out mostly on the top of this one, although when we cut into it, we'll see how deeply it penetrated. But just know, even if the chocolate sinks to the bottom, it's still going to taste great. Or if it floats all on the top, it's still going to taste great. But if you want it all perfectly integrated, you're going to need to do it in pieces, and you're going to need to make sure that your chocolate is really flaky and shaved. Other than that, it's easy peasy, and I love this, and everybody who eats it asks me about it, asks for the recipe, and it's so great for the holidays because you can make it in advance. You can flavor it in all different directions. You could make it with lemon instead of orange, or lime, or whatever citrus that you enjoy. You can add other herbs to it. You could add other baking spices to it and make it a spice cake. You could go in so many directions, and you're going to end up with this really delicious it's almost like just on the edge of this like almost custardy sort of thing. It's so dense. So
this is probably a situation where you would want one of those better olive oils.
Yeah, so it has a lot of olive oil in it. So I would say I tend to use not the cheapest but not the most expensive. Somewhere in the middle. Although I will tell you, this is Costco olive oil in here, which is a really quite good olive oil, the Kirkland brand. So the Kirkland brand, I believe it's organic extra virgin. Yeah, I'd have to look at the cat thing, but yes. I don't know if that's the one I used though. That's the one that was here. I bought olive oil at home because I had to make the cakes at night. Again, you can experiment, right? Different olive oils are going to impart different flavors. Some olive oils have more grassy flavors, and that could pair really well with the rosemary if you're adding herbs to it. Experiment. You can go in a lot of different directions, but if you use your most expensive finishing olive oil, it will taste delicious. It's just going to be an expensive cake. Yeah. What's your question?
One of my favorite places to visit is Queen Creek Oliveville in Queen Creek, Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And they have their own trees. They make a chocolate olive oil.
Nice.
To eye for.
That's awesome. Yeah, I bet that would be amazing in an olive oil cake. That's
Your
awesome.
job is to bring some to the next event so we can try it. You can't drop that and not
I know, seriously.
That's really cool. Awesome.
All right, so we've got one more recipe we want to talk about today. This was something that we, talked about, played around with. I don't think we invented it, but we definitely were sort of just thinking through ideas about it in different directions we could go in the office.
Yeah, the Wellington's been around for a long time. I will say, you don't want to make a Wellington in the morning, wrap it in foil, drive it in your car, hold it here in foil, because it's not going to be 100%. But I will say this thing held up really well through all that. It's been through a lot today. So, but it's going to taste really good. So writing this Wellington recipe is so hard, right? Trying to explain it, I can make a Wellington. I could sit here and talk to you about a Wellington. But to write it down and explain it, how I rolled it and did all these things, it's very challenging. One of my friends walked into the office the other day, and I was sitting there he's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I'm writing a Wellington recipe." He's like, "You don't know how to make a Wellington?" I said, "Yes, I do. I don't know how to write the recipe." So anyway,
So I think some of the titles might have gotten cut off in some of the recipe packets.
So there's a couple steps to this thing, right? There's the portobello part, which you could omit, but we're gonna cut it. I'm gonna show you what they look like. So I got portobello caps, right? I took some garlic, some onion, some rosemary, some soy sauce, and balsamic vinegar. Mixed that up, poured it over top of them. Placed the portobellos on a sheet pan lined with parchment paper or foil. You're gonna grill these. You're gonna put the gill side up. Right, it's gonna hold some of that stuff while it's baking. It's like a little cup, right? The gills are the little black things on the bottom, which I do not cut out, by the way. Some chefs will say take them out. I do not. I leave them in. I cannot tell the difference when they're in there. To me, it's a waste and it's a lot of work. I'm lazy. So we're gonna put all that stuff. We're gonna go ahead and roast those at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. We don't want to over roast them. But we want to get them tender enough that we can work with them inside there, right? So that's it for the portobellos. Then we're going to cool those down because we don't want to wrap up hot mushroom stuff in that, right? We want to wrap it when it's at least room temperature.
Puff pastry is the way puff pastry works to make it flaky and fluffy is that it's got these layers of butter in between the dough. It's laminated dough. If you are a Great British Baking show fans, you'll understand dough lamination. And when you get it hot, that butter is going to start to leak out prematurely, and then you end up with less flakes.
Yeah, that looks nice. I smell it too. So then you want to make a mix, right? This mix is going to go into that food processor that we just messed with for a while. So what I needed for that, I needed creminis. I bought some dried mushrooms, which are a little more expensive. You do not have to use those. I took a little bit of walnut. I want a little bit of that meaty kind of binder in there, right? A normal duck salad is not going to have walnuts, right? But for this, I wanted a little bit of walnut. Kip's going to show you what it looks like here in a minute. It held together really nice.
Oh, it smells so good.
Smells good. It's easy to make. So you take all that stuff, you put it in a food processor, you make this paste. It's going to like the cranberry stuff, right? I want to break it all down, make this paste. And then what I'm going to do is lay it out on a baking sheet and bake it, right? I'm talking a lot, but it's all written down for you guys. I think it's pretty good. You bake it. You want to get the moisture out of the mushrooms. Mushrooms have all this water in them. That's the goal. We want to get the water out of the mushroom, concentrate the flavor, right? And then we're going to roll it up. It's going to look like that. You see that portobello sitting in there? That looks kind of cool. And then you have that other mix on the top and the bottom all the way around, right? So when I lay it out I roll out my puff pastry, Pepperidge Farms puff pastry, 2 to a pack, open it up, right? It's in the freezer section, thaw it out, roll it out, right? Roll it out. And then you have a square. I lay down my mushroom mixture, right? I leave about an inch from each edge all the way around. So I make this stuff, right? It's all flattened out. And then I'm going to take my mushrooms. Again, I'm going to leave them. I want the gills looking at me when I put it down, right? Then I'm going to put some more mushroom mix on that. And then I'm going to fold it in the sides, brush it with egg, and then I'm going to roll it, right? Like a roll. And then I'm going to bake it. I think I baked that. Again, it depends on your oven. I recommend 400 degrees, at least 35 minutes. At least. Probably more like 40, 45. Okay? I bake those in a convection oven, so if you don't have a fan on your oven, you may want to go a little longer.
Smells
all ovens are different. Yeah, it smells good. There's a dried porcinis in there, so if you buy dried mushrooms, you want to rehydrate them in some water. You can blend them up, or you can leave them whole. I chose to leave them whole. Something about paying a lot of money for these mushrooms and then grind them all up. I couldn't do it, so I didn't do it. I left them whole. Truffle oil would be nice in there too. You can smell it. It would be nice. I think there's some rosemary in there. I don't know. It's really easy. You've maybe had beef Wellington. That's an old school thing. The tenderloin. There's ducktail in there as well. It's just part of the thing. We just took the mushroom and ramped it up with more mushrooms. So you can use all sorts of mushrooms in there. I chose the creminis. They're pretty good, middle of the road. Yeah, go ahead.
It says served with balsamic syrup. Is that something you could buy?
Yep, you can buy balsamic syrup. I don't know what I did with that. I had it here. Oh, great.
Yep.
Thank you for that segue. You can buy balsamic syrup at Publix, Kroger, anywhere. We don't make things here. Costco. You guys must work for Costco.
Someone asked if this was more of an appetizer. It could be a great appetizer. It could also be, a meatless entree, a side dish.
Yeah. Definitely an appetizer. Yesterday we were in the kitchen and I was making those, and somebody else was baking gingerbread. And I could smell the molasses and stuff. And then I was thinking about this thing, and we had some pomegranate molasses. So I stole that from work. Hope work's not watching. And I brought that. That's kind of cool because it's tart. It has that molasses, like that funky sort of, what's the word? Like a mushroom, right? It's got that musky. That's what I'm looking for. That smell that I thought would be really nice with this. But I also have the balsamic. Both of these are for sale at Publix, Kroger, or whatever. I especially like the pomegranate molasses. You should try it. Put a little bit on there. It'll help cut through some of that. I think this thing needs another layer. Like you're eating it has the mushroom, the pastry. It's really, really good. But I want some kind of acid, sweet, tart thing happening.
I think that's a good point to make in general when you're thinking about Thanksgiving. American Thanksgiving food is a lot of starchy, brown, casserole-y things, and I think we do this in part to sort of cut through that, but lots of cuisines have these sort of sharp, acidic condiments to them, right, to act as a foil against a starchier or meatier dish. And so I think this serves that same purpose, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about building balances of flavor so that you don't have too much of just
one
now
mix.
we all love, right, a flaky, pastry, buttery, delicious, savory thing, right? But if that's your whole plate, then it just starts to get a little, it's
Monotonous.
not giving you as much punch, right?
On the recipe,
Go ahead.
real quick.
Yep.
Okay, so you laid out your puff pastry, you rolled it out.
I
And
wrote-
this is arrange half of it in a 4x10" strip in the center of the puff.
Yeah, so that's where you're at. Your puff pastry is here on this board, right? This is your pastry. You roll it out. What I do is I take that mushroom mix, right, and I lay it here. I leave about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inch gap here, right, all the way around. So then I just have that mushroom stuff. Now I'm gonna lay those portobellos with the gill side up, right? Then I'm gonna put a little bit more of that mushroom on top of those, right? Then I'm gonna fold here, 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 here. I'm gonna egg wash that, and then I'm gonna roll it over top, right? And seal it up. You wanna make sure you seal it up. Now, the other thing is I wanna cut some holes in the top, slits, little tiny slits, just to let that excess steam out. Right? These mushrooms still, even though I baked them, did all the things with them, they still have water in them, right? And I don't want that soggy stuff on the inside. So we want some of that steam to escape as it's baking inside. This one does not have portobellos because I ran out. But I had extra mushroom stuff, so I threw it together for us. Any other questions on that? I know there's a lot of writing on that, but I didn't know how else to do it. Other than make a video. What else?
Mustard, stone-ground mustard, sounds like to me like it would have been good next to like the mushrooms.
Yeah, why not?
Try it.
Try
Tell
it.
us. Report back.
So
I
two
think
things.
that's a
Now you
great
have to make
idea.
this with mustard
I
and
know.
bring that olive oil. You just keep talking, you're gonna get more and more. Right. No, that's a good point. Yeah, mustard works great in there. Maybe some different herbs. We do have some fried sage to go with that, which is kind of cool. And that's just fresh sage that I fried in just a little bit of shallow oil and crisp it up. Put a little salt on it. That can go on there as garnish. You eat it. It's kind of fun. Yeah, but there's all kind of different things you can mix in there, without a doubt. You know, the traditional Wellington, I believe, has a smear of mustard on it, so that's a good point. Yeah, on the beef, if you're making beef Wellington. Yeah, okay. What else? We did roast some turkey. Womp womp. We have some.
Don't sell it short, Chuck.
We did all this work, but we also did some turkey, right? So the turkey's cool. All I did with the turkey, I bought turkey breast, right? I like dark meat, but also breast meat can be done really well too, right? Don't overcook it. You know, you want to cook it. You know, cooked poultry should be cooked to 165, right? Yep.
One question, just a general
Go
thing.
for it.
serving turkey.
Yep.
Depends who you ask, I guess, but what's your opinion on brine?
Brine. On brining. Yeah, there's so many different opinions. I did not brine this turkey, right? Should you brine a turkey? I don't know. I think it helps, to be honest. I kind of like it myself. I just don't know. That's a lot of work, right? Again, it goes back to that. So I bought this turkey, salt, pepper, oil, turmeric, right? Don't ask. Turmeric, rosemary, salt and pepper, a little smoked paprika. I rubbed it down. I put it in the oven. I baked it to 165. Right at. You can even go a little under because it's going to carry it over. You want to shoot for 160 and take it out. I don't remember.
It depends.
I'm going to say it was in the oven probably about 2 hours.
It depends on how much turkey you've got. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not write a recipe for this turkey. I just read it. Yeah. But if you have a thermometer, check your turkey after about an hour. You want to check it in the breast. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
All right, so I think that is going to conclude our video presentation for today. We are going to switch over and getting set up for serving.
Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If you're interested in other live or recorded programs, please visit the online program tab of our website, cscatlanta.org, or follow us on Facebook. We'll be sharing additional information on